Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about Nashville SC in the Moving Forward Series episode, and that this is the first team that I'm going to talk about coming out of the Western Conference that got eliminated in the playoffs in the Moving Forward Series episode, as the previous free team I mentioned that got eliminated in the playoffs came from the East. And really for Nashville this season, it really reminds me of the 2019 Portland Timbers. Remember, that was a team that went on a long road trip to begin the season because they were doing renovation to Providence Park, and they were able to survive that long road trip just hanging above the red line. And that was kind of the same case for Nashville, waiting for their stadium to build, go on a long road trip, and able to survive that being just above the red line. And you're thinking, well, it seems like they're set up for a great run to potentially win all their home games, and now they can get the number one seed in the Western Conference. Yeah, that did not happen to the Portland Timbers in 2019, and it certainly didn't happen for Nashville SC this season, with them finishing 5th in the Western Conference. Though I will say that as much as, yes, that their home form was pretty bad throughout the season, it did get a little bit better as the season goes along, and they had to, because knowing the fact that they were getting to a point where I think that game when they lost 2-1 to Minnesota back in August, that was really the rock bottom point. That was a point where Nashville was really in danger of missing out of the playoffs because their abysmal home form, that things kind of take a turn for the better, and they started to get back to form. But unfortunately, just like that Portland Timbers team that I mentioned earlier, they also suffer a first round exit once again. Now, this season they finished with 13-11-10 record and finished with 50 points. They scored 52 goals this season while allowing 41 goals with a goal differential of plus 11. So definitely some good numbers there. I mean, 52 goal score is definitely above average, though I'm pretty sure almost half of those goals was scored by Hani Mukhtar this season. And in the 41 goals that they allowed, it's definitely higher than previous season, and that there definitely was some regression in this defense, but still 41 goals is pretty good, and that I would say it's right just above average in terms of the average in terms of the goal allowed this season. And the same goes with the plus 11 goal differential, and they finished 5th in the Western Conference, but unfortunately they got eliminated by the LA Galaxy in the first round. Now, top goal scored, I mean, who else but Hani Mukhtar, the MVP. 23 goals this season, also winning the Golden Boot this year, followed by Teal Bunbury with 5 goals, CJ Sapong with 5 goals, Walker Zimmerman with 4 goals, and Dave Romney with 3 goals. Top assist leader, also your MVP, Hani Mukhtar with 11 assists, followed by Randall Leao with 7 assists, CJ Sapong with 4 assists, Luke Hawkinson with 3 assists, and Dax McCarty with 3 assists. So what are some of the highlights for Nashville this season? Well, Hani Mukhtar winning the MVP and the Golden Boot. Like, you might as well just rename this Nashville Hani Mukhtar Soccer Club, because literally Hani Mukhtar was carrying this team on his back throughout the majority of the season. He was scoring goals at just an incredible rate, and also he was pulling the string too. And yeah, I mean, this is definitely going to go down as one of the best season we have seen an individual player, probably since Carlos Vela broke that record in terms of the most goal scorer, and he also registered a lot of assists, even with him scoring like 34 goals back in 2019. And then, of course, the other highlights of this team is the road record. It continued to be strong. I mean, that's been a strong point for this Nashville team. They've always been very good on the road, and all of that has to do with the fact that the style that Gary Smith play fits better when they're on the road. This is a team that likes to play that classic low bunker and mid-block kind of style, and they like to also counter attack team to get those chances. And also, they're a team that is not afraid to just kind of dink the ball or in the box and hope for the best, or in the case when they really need to score the goal, then they rely on Hani Mukhtar does his magic, and for the most part, especially during the summer month, that's when he really showed his magic and really just go on an absolute rampage that we have not seen a player gone through probably since Carlos Vela did it back in 2019. So what are some of the lowlights for this Nashville SC team? Well, while the road form was definitely good this season, it was not the case for the home form. And again, it definitely got better as their home form goes along. I mean, in terms of their home record, they actually did get 6 wins at home this season, which, consider how Nashville was really struggling at home this year. It's kind of a bit of a miracle, the fact that they were able to get six wins. Consider they were stuck at just one win for a very long time. But again, that early stint was part of that point where they were stuck at one win at Geodis Park for a very long time. And again, I think this maybe is just a sense of the fact that we have seen this before, where teams play in a new building. It's going to take a while for them to establish that it is truly their home field, because when you're playing in a new stadium, you still will have to kind of just make sure that you're finally playing at home. You're actually not playing on the road anymore. And also, not to mention that psychology of the fact that they've been going on the road for so long. It is definitely not easy to just easily adjust and say, well, all of a sudden now we of course are playing home games and so forth. But again, I think besides the fact that playing in a new building, sometimes it takes time to adjust. It's also just going back to what I said about the style that Nashville plays. I mean, this is a team that still has trouble in terms of whenever they are able to basically have most of the possession and trying to break teams down, unless if Hani Mukhtar decided to do something crazy, which we have seen it throughout the season. But besides that, many teams, they know the secret that Nashville does. They know what Gary Smith will always do. They'll try to give Nashville all the possession and basically just kind of ask them the question of, well, can they of course break them down? And again, besides Hani Mukhtar, really nobody on this team can really be able to break down the opposition low block. And again, when you're at home, you're gonna of course get more of the possession. And because of the fact that this team is not designed to do that maybe plays to the fact that they really struggle at home. And again, besides Hani Mukhtar, there was little to no attacking threat. Don't really need to eliminate more on that point. And then, of course, the other lowlights for this season is the defense. Again, the defense and Joe Willis really kind of had a down season this year. I mean, yes, they conceded 41 goals, which is still considered one of the best. But when you look at this Nashville defense compared to previous year, where it was always considered to be the best defensive team in the league, and it's not a big surprise because when you have the likes of Walker Zimmerman, Dave Romney, and all those guys at the back, and Joe Willis becoming a very underrated goalkeeper in this league, it's not a big surprise the fact that they were very good in the defensive front. And also, not to mention, in the midfield part, when you have Dax McCarty and Annabelle Godoy putting those fires, even though they're definitely near the end of their career, it can also shows you why the fact that they of course didn't give up a lot of goals in their first two existent. Now the problem is that as I mentioned with both Zimmerman and Romney, I mean, I think both of those guys kind of had a decent season. They didn't really had a big drop off. But what is a drop-off is the fact that they didn't have Annabelle Godoy for the most of the season, and that, as a Quakes fan, I mean, this is not a big surprise seeing a former Quakes player go to another team and does well, like what Godoy has done for Nashville SC. But also the fact that Dax McCarty, father time is starting to kind of catch up to Dax a little bit. Yeah, you can definitely see that when you have a midfield that isn't as solid as previous time, where teams are able to really put more pressure on this Nashville backline. Yeah, that of course is a resort of where they were started to give up a little bit more goals than usual. And also Joe Willis, again, some of those saves that he made in previous season, I wasn't really seeing that. I mean, besides that one good game that he had against LAFC at the end of the season, where he that I would argue probably was his best game of his career, he really didn't had a good season, and that there was just so many times where some of the goals that he conceded, it's kind of a bit of head scratcher, and some that I don't think previous season Joe Willis would have conceded. Now, in terms of MVP and revelation, I mean, it's got to be Hani Mukhtar. I mean, he is the league MVP. That's pretty obvious in terms of who is the best player of this team and who is the revelation. I mean, if I really want to talk about MVP and revelation without Hani Mukhtar, I would say Jacob Schaffelberg deserves a shout, because, again, I talked about before where, Jacob Schaffelberg moving from TFC to Nashville was probably the best decision in his career, because during his time with TFC, he was basically being wasted with the way that he he was playing out of position for most of the game, and that he was also getting benched for most of the game because he was clearly not good enough. And that now that he comes to Nashville SC, a change of scenery, and also play in a more preferable winger position, you saw how much an impact he made, especially during his first couple of games with Nashville SC. So if you want to talk about revelation and MVP besides Hani Mukhtar, I would say Jacob Schaffelberg definitely deserved a shout there. Now, in terms of disappointment, it's got to be CJ Sapong. I mean, this was, we knew last season when CJ Sapong had a good season, it wasn't going to be sustainable. And not to mention the fact that I always feel like CJ Sapong, he's a very inconsistent player. He can have one season where he can score like 10 plus goals and so on and so forth. And then the very next season, he will follow that with a dud. And this season, he not only followed it with a big dud, he didn't score a goal past May. Like, you talk about a number 9 or a striker in this league that is probably the most cursed striker, or a guy that just simply cannot buy a goal. That was the case for CJ Sapong. Like, he just cannot buy a goal, no matter how much he tried. And it got so bad that he was actually benched for Theo Bunbury, and that Theo Bunbury for a time was started to show his former self during his time with New England, scoring the goals there, and that, there's no doubt that it's got to be a huge disappointment for CJ Sapong. That I know he's kind of an inconsistent player, but to follow for the rest of the season, to not even score a goal past the month of May, yikes, that is definitely a big I mean, I will also say that that some people will say, well, why not Ake Loba being on as the disappointment? And in some way, maybe some will say Ake Loba could be a huge disappointment. I mean, he easily, I would say, is probably one of the worst DP signing in the history of this league. But I just think in terms of minutes itself, I mean, it would have been too easy for me to put Ake Loba there, but I decided to go with CJ Sapong, mainly because he, of course, at least play more minutes and at least kind of contribute a little bit more. But yeah, I think that's kind of the reason why I put them. Though again, I could have easily put Ake Loba as probably the biggest disappointment this season and last year, and like I said, is going to go down as one of the worst DP signings we have ever seen in league history. Speaking of Ake Loba, moving forward for this Nashville team, they got rid of Ake Loba. So the good news is they loaned him to Mazatlan just today, and it feels like they have finally opened up a DP spot. Or did they? Because apparently, from what I heard from Tom Bogert, is that despite the fact that Nashville did loan Ake Loba to Mazatlan, and there is actually an option to buy in terms of that loan deal, it seems like they couldn't offload his DP contract because there is this very strange rule in MLS, and it's kind of hard to explain it. So just bear with me a bit. Where if you decide to loan a player to a certain club, I think it has something to do with the transfer fees. If it's high enough, where the loan, of course, has happened, then basically they can't get rid of the DP tag. Or actually, I don't know if that actually make it any sense. I will say, I'll just give an example, or just give a difference between the Ake Loba situation compared to I would say compared to the Pizarro situation. It was kind of the same thing where, unless if the other team decided to eat up most of the salary part of that loan deal, and depending on how the loan offer is kind of constructed, if it's not high enough that or if it's not in a way where it can withstand the threshold of a team potentially able to remove a DP tag of a player that is on loan, then the DP tag, of course, stays on the team. And in this case, it feels like that threshold was not met, and therefore that's why Ake Loba is still, even though he's not with this team anymore, and that he's on loan with Mazatlan, his DP contract is still with play. So that has to be really frustrating. And again, it's one of those weird, crazy rule we have seen in MLS that it just kind of doesn't make any sense whatsoever. In some way, I feel like they should have got rid of it, or at least get rid of it, because just to not kind of confuse many people of why exactly even if they loan Ake Loba off to Liga MX, that they still have to carry his contract and he's still considered a DP. But yeah, this is definitely a really bad news for Nashville SC, and this just goes to even worse in terms of this situation where, yeah, you know, they basically get no benefit out of this. He still owns one of the designated player tag, even though he's not playing for the team and he's gone on loan. And unless if Mazatlan decided to kind of purchase him outright, then yeah, they're going to stuck with having Ake Loba occupying one of their DP spot. And keep in mind, they pretty much have all three of their DP spot locked in. I mean, Hani Mukhtar is the second DP, and then Walker Zimmerman, of course, is the third DP. So even though they desperately need a number 9, they cannot not really break the bank in terms of finding a designated player number 9 because of this situation. And that, again, this is why it's going to go down as one of the worst signing ever for Nashville SC, because not only they screw themselves in terms of signing the worst DP number 9 I think we have seen in recent history, but now they can't even get rid of that tag, even if they want to, when they try to loan him to somewhere else. And as I said, they desperately need a number 9 or any attacking player that can be a goal scorer to relieve Hani Mukhtar low on this team. I mean, it was no surprise that with what Hani Mukhtar has done and really make this team kind of like a one-man team, it was just not going to be sustainable. I mean, even Captain Dax McCarty's said it before, whereas great as Hani Mukhtar has been carrying the team, that was not going to be sustainable, and that's not going to do it if they of course get to the playoffs. And it's a no big surprise that in that game against the Galaxy, where Hani Mukhtar pretty much was shut down for the whole game, the entire team basically was shut down, especially on the attacking end. And, well, the other thing that I will say, that besides the fact that I know a lot of people are focused on the attack, and especially in that striker position for this Nashville team, I feel a lot of people realize that they might also need to think about upgrading their central midfield. Now, when you look at this central midfield, they did desperately trying to get younger. You know, last season getting Sean Davis, who I thought he had a decent season this year. You know, he's also partnered with Anuga, who I thought he had an okay season too. But they're definitely not at the level that Dax McCarty and Annabelle Godoy was in terms of partnering with each other. And this, again, goes back to what I said earlier with the way that, you know, they really miss both of those guys, because while Davis and Anuga was able to slot in okay, or slot in there and be an okay replacement, it was not as good as when you have guys like McCarty and Godoy in that midfield. And unfortunately, when you look at this upcoming season, I mean, both of those guys are going to be in their mid-30s, and most cases that they're probably not going to play every single minute. So in some way, it's not only about upgrading their central midfield, but they also need depth in terms of that central midfield position. And that, you know, in terms of the upgrade, that would be something I think they'll definitely think about heading into maybe even as soon as next off season, because, you know, that's also been one of the strong points for Nashville SC. I mean, besides the fact that they have been having a very strong defense ever since they came into the league, they also have a very strong midfield, one of the best holding midfield partnership we've seen with Godoy and McCarty, that has really anchored this midfield for this team for the past couple of seasons, ever since they came into the league. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for my moving forward series with Nashville SC. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video? And if you're a Nashville fan, what do you think is some of the highlights, the lowlights, the MVP revelation, the disappointment, and moving forward, how is this team is going to look, that now this team is going back to the Eastern Conference? And I didn't even mention in my moving forward series episode that they're moving back to the East. I mean, it's hard to believe. I should have mentioned this earlier, the fact that they're moving back to the East, and that should be very interesting to see how they're going to compete in an Eastern Conference that look like could maybe be the better conference, because there's a lot of very good team in the Eastern Conference this year. But yeah, let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys do a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.